Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to September. It is September. Can you believe it? Good morning and welcome to Wake Up with me, Sonia P. How are you all doing? It is the 1st of September, 2025. It is exactly 9 a.m. British summertime, and I am here to bring a bang into your life in all the right ways. How are you? Wonderful to see you all in the comments already. Gorgeous to see you. Grand risings, everyone. Grand risings to you all. Hello, Gazgano and Travis and is it Jan and Colin and so many, Merv and Blind Hip Shaker and Derek and Health Freedom and you name it. Synchronized Souls. Did I already say you? And Shin and Paul, you name it. And Chris, welcome back from your holiday, Chris. How are you all? Welcome to the show that knows it is never too late to be what you might have been. You know it, folks. It's September the 1st, and what a show we have for you. I can't even get the words out. I'm so excited. So let me just tell you what's coming up on our show today. We will be joined shortly by geopolitical journalist Warren Thornton. Loads going on around the world. Indonesian riots, the UK hotel protest, Dezi Freeman at large, the Milei sister scandal, and the Yemeni leader death. There's a lot of stuff to cover. We'll also be joined by comedians Tanya Edwards and Alistair Williams, who will be popping on to remind us that they are going on tour. Yes, indeed. And they said they would. They said they joined us a few months ago and they said that they'd pop back on just before the tour started to remind us. We'll also be talking Nigel Farage in the US and online censorship, and ready for release, Christian Bruckner, the man that they said was the prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Oh, how we laughed, but not because it's amusing. And what else? Public parole, Stephen Lawrence, murder convict. That's coming up. Also, animal welfare, a 24-hour protest walk, non-stop. Good luck with that, kid. Good luck. And hidden cameras in the Scottish Parliament. More on that shortly. Plus, little Nas X. I mean, what can you say? What can you say when you go through the music industry machine and you're prepared to sell out in such a huge way? Little Nas X is a man with demons. We'll be talking about that later. Also, marching forward, they are determined to bring in that brick card and have been for about at least 25 years. Yes, indeed. And Virginia's victims' money. Where is the money that was intended for Virginia Giuffre's Victims Fund? Plus farms, pick your own food, as I did at the weekend, and I have a video to show you. We also have your shout as well, response to recent videos, and we will end with move on. The season is assisting you. Indeed it is. And of course, many people feel that because this week the schools go back in England and Wales. And many people get this feeling that summer is now over and autumn has started. That's obviously not technically true, because autumn is not here until September the 22nd, but it feels quite autumnal out there. Yesterday it did. It was well breezy. How are you all in the comments, you beautiful people? Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning, Ian. Good morning, Jackie. Good morning, Sally. Lovely to see you. It might as well rain until September, says Stephen Merchant. I think you might be showing your age there, Stephen, but all good. It's all good. All good. Hello, Penny. How are you? Good. Good to see you. So as I say, English schools return this week, as indeed does the British Parliament. Back today. Those lazy shysters. They have so much holiday. It's ridiculous. This is going to be interesting this week because I've never been a fan of Nigel Farage, even before it was trendy, right? I disliked him even before it was popular to do so, even before one of the tech bros came out against him. But Nigel Farage is off to the US. He might already have started on his journey. And he's there at the invitation of House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan, because it's this whole kind of escalation that's taking place about foreign tech regulations that are being impacted due to British and European censorship laws. So that's going to be interesting. He's likely to be talking about the British riots. I do that in air quotes, and which has kind of followed the whole Epping hotel scenario, which we will talk about in more depth shortly. He'll be talking about the Online Safety Act. He will definitely be talking about the gatekeeper's favorite psyop, Lucy Connolly, and what to say about it, really. Well, So I think the situation really is that Jordan is particularly interested in the UK's Online Safety Act, aren't we all? And obviously, it went into effect in late July. And then you've got the European Union's Digital Services Act, which is a content moderation law. And the committee claims that these laws threaten Americans' right to speak freely in the United States. Because obviously, if people are tweeting and doing their social media posts in America, but they are coming to England, then they are subject to the same insane censorship that we are. And I think it's things like this are really good. You don't have to like Farage to see that there may be something of interest that could come from him being on the world stage talking about the Online Safety Act. The Online Safety Act is an egregious policy which is against the British people, and we know that. And obviously, US tech giants are not happy because what is happening here is impacting them over there. It's that simple. This is not Elon Musk and co going, oh, those poor Brits, their freedom of speech is being impacted. No, they're deeply concerned about how it impacts their business model. But sometimes you need people to come together, even if you don't agree with them, if you're on the same side. And on this, I'm on the same side because I don't want that level of online censorship that the Online Safety Act is introducing to us. And so we shall see. I will be interested to hear what Nigel Farage has to say. And yeah, let's have a listen. And that's Wednesday. So looking forward to that. And talking about tech bros and overreach, by the way, I am deeply concerned about the divisions that are taking place at the moment. And let me just bring in this imagery here. Elon Musk has turned his attention once again to the UK. He is fascinated and somewhat obsessed with the Muslim population of the UK and what they may or may not be doing in England and the UK. And I think it's extraordinary that he's so focused on the UK, but not at all to the genocide in Gaza. And I think that's important because that sounds to me like he may be a bit myopic. It may be that he has tunnel vision for a reason, okay? And I think it's really interesting when you get people like Rebecca Ferguson, who was on the X Factor, for example, now holding people like Elon Musk to account for his, let's say, lack of awareness raising around the issue to do with Israel and Gaza. And thank you, Rebecca, for doing that, by the way. She said, I would no longer engage with anybody who denies the suffering of the Palestinian people. And more power to your elbow, sister. And what we've seen over the last week or so is, well, a number of things. And that is Elon Musk has got behind Ben Habib's new party, Advance UK. And so has Tommy Robinson. And Elon Musk does love sticking his nose into UK politics because obviously he's ended up with a bloody nose after sticking his nose into US politics. So he probably thinks, well, let me give it a shot in the UK now. So first of all, he got behind reform, didn't he? And Nigel Farage, they met in the US, I think, over last Christmas. And then suddenly out of nowhere, as Elon Musk is wont to do, he turned on Nigel Farage. And I think in part because Nigel Farage was saying shitey things about Tommy Robinson, who Elon Musk likes. Anyway, Elon Musk has now got behind Advance UK. So we shall see what comes from that. And it's also interesting, I think, that do you remember the other week there was this issue with Tommy Robinson about what's an incident that had happened at St Pancras station, and all we saw was the video afterwards of a man lying sort of prone and Tommy Robinson pacing backwards and forwards saying, you saw him, he came at me, Gov, and all that kind of stuff. And then he jetted off and he'd gone to Tenerife, and then when he came back into Luton Airport, he was arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm in connection with the incident on July the 28th. Well, the CPS have now ruled that Tommy Robinson will not be charged. And I don't know the full story. I don't think many of us do. But it's very interesting that they've decided that. I understand that the man who was lying prone was I think not willing to give evidence, which in itself always raises a question mark. But it could be because he was the provocateur. That was what Tommy Robinson was saying. But the point is, we don't know, and there will be no charges now. And it went to the CPS. The British Transport Police said, following a report of an assault at St Pancras Station, detectives from British Transport Police quickly launched a full and thorough investigation, which involved a 42-year-old man being arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm at Luton Airport on the 4th of August. And it went to the CPS, and the CPS ruled there was not a realistic prospect of conviction. And they said that following a review of the available evidence, the CPS concluded that there was not a realistic prospect of conviction, and therefore there would be no criminal charges in this case. Well, that is interesting in itself, because that suggests that we certainly haven't been told the full story. And I don't believe for a second that we're necessarily going to get the full story from people who are either pro or anti Tommy Robinson, because people have a dog in the race. And people no longer seem to care about what is the truth or not, just as long as their own agenda is uppermost. And I talk also not just about the globalists or the kind of elite parasites. I'm talking about people now who believe themselves to be very clued up and are on social media, and they will share any mis and disinformation as long as it supports their side, which is silly, because actually, when it comes to the issue, which is largely on people's minds, and certainly followers of Tommy Robinson, there is a lot in their favour to be said. There is clearly a very problematic issue with small boats coming in, with our immigration policies, and those are legitimate things that they could talk about and that they could use in their campaigns. So anyway, but I want to be absolutely 100% very, very clear, and that is, as someone born and bred in England, I am not liking what I am seeing at the moment. There is a lot of ugly, almost demonic racism that is around us. Not liking it at all. I saw one Chinese restaurant, Dragon House, saying, "I feel truly heartbroken today. My Chinese takeaway, which has been serving this community for more than 10 years, was vandalized with hateful graffiti telling us to go home." And then, of course, we saw that ugly pair, the dog walkers, the racist couple who asked a British NHS nurse if she came here on a rubber boat. This is the kind of shite that I will not support at all. At all. I want to tar and feather every racist like that I encounter. I loathe those kind of people. Divisive, ignorant. But it is also fair that there are very, very, very legitimate concerns about immigration. So let's talk to the man who knows about these legitimate concerns. Let's bring him in. Here we go. Warren Thornton, geopolitical journalist. How are you, Warren?
I am absolutely fine, Sonia. Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody who is watching your show.
And hello to you too. And Warren, there's so much to cover with you. I'm going to start on home turf, although not necessarily your home turf at this moment. You're in the Philippines, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Which can often explain why sometimes we hear you more clearly and other times not necessarily, but we can hear you perfectly today, and that's fine. Let's talk about this Epping hotel situation, because this seems very much to be the lightning rod for a lot of stuff that's going on. So obviously last week, what happened was Epping Forest Council won a court hearing whereby they were able to no longer have the Bell Hotel as a place for migrants. And after the 12th of September, people were going to have to leave. And then the Home Office and Samani Hotels, who own the Bell Hotel, they then applied for the right to appeal, and they won that last week. And there's been a lot of misinformation about it, because people are like, oh, they won the appeal. That's not what happened. They won the right to appeal, which is slightly different, actually. So talk to me. Tell me what you're thinking about these protests and what's going on, Warren.
Well, it's quite clear that there is, should we say, two sets of agents at play here. There are those that are sponsored by there are the normal British people who are really, really concerned at the levels of immigration and the things that are happening with some of the fact that they're being placed in hotels instead of on bases where they can be looked at and made sure that whatever is going on with them, that they are at least, shall we say, doing the right thing. And the thing that really upsets everybody with this is, of course, there are agents on both sides. There are people on the left who want to stop people from protesting. They're literally being bussed in so that they can clash. What is really, really troubling with this, Sonia, and I don't know if it troubles you, but it troubles me immensely, as I think they are using these protests to eventually get to a crisis point where they can introduce new legislation. Because if you want to have a protest, by all means protest, keep it peaceful, and let's not have any counter-protests on the same day. If you want to counter-protest, do it the following day. But they don't want that, Sonia, and the powers that be are, and I'm fearful that it is being overtaken on both sides. You've got the people who are stupidly racist. You've got the people who are quite lunatic in they'll let anybody into the country, and the sensible, reasonable voices, Sonia, are being silenced.
I absolutely agree with you. And so the thing is that obviously there is so much chaos that's taking place around this. And there's a lot of party politics that is taking place. You have the left saying, well, the judge who allowed that appeal was very much coming from the left. He's a Fabian and all of these things. But people are forgetting the fact that the original judge, Jay Iyer, was actually a conservative candidate. So there are politics on both sides of this. And I think what we need to do is we need to look at the net result of what is taking place. And there are genuinely concerned people who are out there protesting. And I think these need to be acknowledged, because what we're seeing, Warren, is all around us, these people who actually want a civil war. We're seeing it. There's people who are creating this climate where they want to go to war, and they are just almost brain dead. They really are. Or are they agents of the state? Because we have to allow for that, don't we? That there are always agent provocateurs, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And of course, there is money behind this. You don't suddenly turn up with these nonsense, should we say, bits and pieces, where everybody turns up with placards, everybody turns up, suddenly all these printed posters are up everywhere. Normally, when it's organic, it is completely different. People go up cardboard and stuff like this, Sonia. There's no doubt that there is, shall we say, dark money behind this. There's Israel money behind this. There's also, on the other side of the coin, Soros money behind the other end of it as well. And as I say, it's the people who are concerned for their children and everything else are getting this hijack. And of course, the mainstream media are going to ramp this up, because that's exactly what the government want. And then there will be an explosion at some point, Sonia, and they'll use this for even greater police powers and eventually stop you protesting. Whereas they could stop the problem inside 2 minutes. Do not allow a counter protest on the same day as the protest is going ahead.
Here's an interesting comment. This is from Hank. It should be illegal to take any asylum while running a huge budget deficit as we are. I think that's an interesting comment. What do you think about that?
I think it's absolutely crazy that we even allow tons and tons of people into the country whilst the country is struggling. They've taken winter payments off of old folks. Everybody's.
Oop, hello, Frozen. Hello, Frozen.
Can you hear me, Sonia?
I can now. Yes, you're back. There you go.
I think I'll just recap very quickly. Very simply, you've got these people who are turning around and saying they have a right to protest. We shouldn't be having these people in the country and everything else. Let's not forget that these people shouldn't be coming into the country, because our country is not in a good state at the moment. Our economy is in the toilet, thanks to the stupid sanctions. And the other thing as well is that the more and more people we bring in, when you consider they've stolen the winter payments, we're giving money to Ukraine. And of course, we are spending down a black hole. This is a black hole of immigrants. They're just going to keep coming. And no matter what the rhetoric, nobody is putting a stop to it.
Absolutely. Right. So obviously we are on the verge of what many people think is rioting, but elsewhere in the world, they are actually rioting. They are rising up and they are rioting. I think let's go to Indonesia next. Is this an uprising of the impoverished against pigs at the trough, Warren, or is it something else?
No, you're absolutely correct. There is an uprising of that. Now, what the parliamentarians have done, if you remember in the UK, when they took away the winter payments, the parliamentarians kept their own winter payments. Well, pretty much the same thing is happening in Indonesia, which has the ability to be one of the, should we say, one of the better countries in the world in terms of standards of living. But there are many, many people in massive poverty. And the parliament there has decided to vote themselves, get this, 10 times the amount that you would get for the national minimum wage. So, of course, the people have got out on the streets on this. This is a housing. This isn't their normal pay, by the way. This is a housing allowance. It is corruption on a massive scale.
So when did it start? Was it yesterday or was it before that?
Oh, it's 2 or 3 days ago. They
Right.
started 2 or 3 days ago. They started having all sorts of ructions and everything else. And of course, like anything, it takes a while for people to come out on the streets.
Yeah.
But literally within days, within sort of 24, 48 hours, people started appearing on the streets, and the police went in very heavy-handed, as they always seem to do around the world these days. And of course, this caused tempers to be inflamed, and the people of Indonesia are absolutely. You have to remember, this is a government, or I should say, a country that since 2008 has had about 10 or 12 leaders. So they don't last very long out there because the corruption is so rife.
So the country is already vulnerable, though, isn't it? If that's the case,
Yes.
and as you say, the corruption is so rife. People have already been killed in these protests, haven't they?
Yes, they have, and of course there will be more. And before, when they've had protests and riots before, there's always quite a heavy death toll. It tends to be the police will then lose their patience and will start shooting into the crowd, and of course they will then, should we say, take revenge on the police as well. So you end up with pretty much like a mini civil war in one place, and of course Jakarta at the moment is literally boiling.
I wonder, what are the similarities, do you think, between what's going on there and what's going on here? Immediately, I have to say that the anger and the tension that people are feeling is a result of government policies, but it's not necessarily to do with the fact that our governments are incredibly greedy. I always find that extraordinary that British people are not rising up against the greed in the British establishment. But do you think that there are any parallels to be drawn between what's going on in England and Indonesia at the moment, Warren?
Only in the fact that they get more violent. In the West, we tend to have organised protests, whether that be not allowing Romanians to pick their candidate to be the Prime Minister, where they have a riot, or you get sort of the ones in Serbia and everything else, where you get these riots trying to overthrow the government. They're pretty much fed by all sorts of non-government organisations. These are organic. This is the people going, we're not having this at all. And of course, in Asia, that tends to be when they're very kind people in Asia and very calm normally, but when something gets their goat, the lid comes off pretty quickly.
Yeah, we don't associate this with Indonesians as one example, like rioting on the streets and, firebombs and everything. But I think that once you continue to push people, you will obviously see another side of them. And, I'm not necessarily suggesting that rioting is the way to go, but I'm not sure what else is actually. And obviously I'm not promoting it because I don't want the police at my door. And we all know how that works these days. But what do you think they're ultimately going to get from this? Do you think that the parliamentarians rather are going to back down, that they're going to be less greedy? They're going to take a cut? What do you think is going to happen? Oh, I think he's frozen again. Might be having one of those days. Oh, here we go. Add to stage. Oh, he's gone out and he's back in again. Hello.
StreamYard had a bit of a meltdown there for a second and then told me to reapply to come back in. They might not like what we're talking about.
Might not indeed. And the thing is I wonder, I think what I was saying was I wonder where this is going to go to really, ultimately. Is it just going to be people angry on the streets? Or do you think that the parliament will listen? Do you think that they will take a cut? I just can't see politicians taking a cut once they've voted it through for themselves.
No, they won't do. It'll go the normal way that it goes in Indonesia. The government will limp along, like a wounded animal, and then eventually it will get torn to pieces. When you do these things in Asia to the people of Asia, you get overthrown in the end. It's not like the UK where or anywhere else where it might calm down, and eventually after the next election we all calm down, don't we? Next election they get thrown out. You get thrown out straight away over there. There is, once it gets to critical mass, the government has to step down because suddenly they're in fear for their lives.
Thank you for that. I want to move on to this because this is not making any sense to me. How come when it comes to Yemeni and what's happened, what Israel did to the Yemen prime minister, how come there's not international condemnation about that, Warren?
It is quite incredible, isn't it? And I have to say, I'm absolutely staggered by the rest of the world because this is a sitting prime minister of a country and they have assassinated him. Imagine if somebody walked up to Keir Starmer outside 10 Downing Street and assassinated him. If somebody jumped onto Macron's plane and assassinated him. Somebody nearly assassinated Trump, but the fallout for that is still going on, and that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. This is Israel assassinating whoever they like, and nobody on the international stage, Sonia, is making any waves whatsoever, least of all America.
What's their rationale for it?
Oh, the rationale is they're all terrorists, and anybody, it's the same as it is in Gaza. That child will grow up to be Hamas. Let's kill it. That seems to be the really stupid rhetoric that's coming out. I mean, if you listen to some of the rhetoric that's coming out of the Israelis, these people are off the charts when it comes to what they're willing to do. There is nothing that they will not do to secure a greater Israel, and that includes you and me.
Oh, absolutely. But you're absolutely right. I mean, imagine if that had been Keir Starmer or any Western leader, there would be absolute uproar. And there's, for me, the Trump thing, there's always a question mark over whether that was legit or not, I have to say, Warren. But you're absolutely right. And I just find it extraordinary. I think it tells us so much about what is actually going on and who the puppet masters are. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like the Zangezur corridor that's opening up, shall we say, in Iran. I mean, it's MI6, CIA, Mossad. They all help each other. Sometimes they're against each other, but 9 times out of 10, they're all organising exactly what they want to do, Sonia. And of course, these people have a globalist agenda in mind, and they don't want anybody getting in the way of that, Sonia. And anybody who does is dealt with very ruthlessly.
And the thing is that obviously we've been covering this for an awful long time, and you've talked to us loads about it. But it concerns me that week in, week out, we see one more show of strength from Israel, that they are allowed to do whatever they want on the world stage and they will be backed. Can you see any Western leader standing up to them? He's frozen again. Obviously, we're having some fun in the Philippines today, people. Philippines. Hello. Hello, Warren.
Yes, we lost you there.
Don't worry.
You went for a second there.
I said we're having some fun in the Philippines today, but don't worry. At least we've got you. That's the point. Sometimes this happens live.
Yeah.
Yes, I was saying, can you see any? Because it seems that when Israel say jump, the Western leaders say how high, and then they get together and then they have a meeting about how they should do that. But is there any Western leaders who are prepared to oppose what's going on, the Greater Israel Project?
No, absolutely none whatsoever.
None?
No, there may be with Orban, but most of them are not. Let's be honest here, Sonia. When America award the money to Israel, and that's the Western outpost in the Middle East, that money doesn't actually go to Israel. What they do is they then use that to buy the weapons. AIPAC is an Israeli, basically a lobby, the Israel lobby. But what that does is it's based in America, and the money then goes through the banks back into senators' campaign funds, which is basically buying the loyalty of all the senators. And on a lesser scale, the same thing happens in France, same thing happens in Germany, same thing happens in in the UK. You try and find any government that is against Israel. You might find the odd prime minister or politician who will come out and say something. Right. But most of the time, Sonia, you and I both know that literally there are only 4 senators that don't receive AIPAC money in the Congress.
Oh. I mean, that's extraordinary. That's captured, isn't it? And I think people who are out there on the streets need to be asking questions. And that is, maybe if Israel stopped bombing people, there might be less asylum seekers. I think we need to do more joined up thinking about what is taking place and why we are dealing with so many asylum seekers. It's all linked, isn't it? He's frozen again. We're having one of those mornings with Warren. Clearly one of those mornings, people. Yes, so it's all linked, and I'm sure he'll come back any moment. There you go. I can hear you briefly coming in and out. You're having a right old time there, aren't you, my love? Hello? 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 Warren? Hello, Warren? I want to let me have a look at some of your comments. Well, police are promoting the clashes, says Blue Nose. We always knew they would steer things this way. Oh, I do remember that girl on fire. Remember Gordon Brown and the bigoted woman comment? People have never been allowed to be worried about immigration. Excellent point. And you could tell when Gordon Brown said that, the disdain that he felt. It was like, it was a visceral loathing, wasn't it? It's terrible. And Warren, are you back?
Yes, I am. Yep.
There he is. He's back. There we go. I was just reading some comments in the meantime. I was just saying that we need to do more joined up thinking, because the point is that Israel seems to bomb whoever it wants to, and then we have to deal with the fallout of that, including the asylum seekers. And if people did more joined up thinking instead of being Zionists and pushing this, we might have less problems. What say you?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, when you think about it for 2 seconds, how crazy this is. You have a bunch of people who live in Israel, this Zionist lunatic, basically fringe people like Haban Lubavitch and people like this infiltrating various areas, who will go around beating Orthodox Jews. Do you think for 1 second that Jewish people, having been through a Holocaust, want to exact the same thing on the people of Gaza? Of course they don't. Right. These are these Zionist lunatics that think the world isn't coming to an end quickly enough. Let's give it a helping hand.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, let me read another comment here. Charles says that we're spot on the money. Stop the bombing and foreign wars, and the influx of asylum seekers would stop. That is the reality. But you have people like Rupert Lowe. They never want to look at these issues, do they? They just want to say, we hate those Muzzies. We hate halal. We hate everything they stand for. But instead of asking why we are getting so many people in boats and in immigration, they fail to do that. Poor Warren is having a difficult time today, isn't it? Religion is the number one cause of death, says Shug. Not the ordinary. What's that? Israel was highly vaccinated, Marcuson. Highly vaccinated. And Aurora said Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Gays have a pride march. They don't do one in Gaza. The question is, do you believe Israel should exist? Where are the Jews to go? Says Aurora. And they don't care about ordinary Jewish people either, but they want as many as possible to. That's not ordinary Jewish people. Sorry. Israel controls the US for its wars. And Jan said, if we didn't give them all the goods to come here, they wouldn't come. Yeah, but that's also a lot of misinformation, isn't it? People lying about how they're getting iPads and everything. We need to deal with absolute facts on this issue. We absolutely do. They weren't vaccinated with the same stuff. It is Epping, not effing. What's that? What's that, Pixel? What's that? All wars are bankers' wars. I tend to agree with you, Carol. Now, poor Warren, has he come back in again? Let's try him again. Poor Warren. Warren, it's like you're giving birth, mate. It's like your waters have broken and the baby wants to come out and still keeps going back in again, but it's absolutely fine. That's the weirdest analogy I've ever come up with for a geopolitical journalist. But there you go. Warren, I want to move on to this because I think this is a very curious story, because this man, we were told, was also one of us, right? But is he, though? This is obviously Javier Milei. I think that's how you pronounce his name, and his sister. And words of scandal and corruption taking place. Fill us in, Warren. What's taking place?
So basically, the rest of Argentina are rioting because Javier Milei's sister opening off funds along through NGOs with one of the banks. And of course, she is wanting to put her under indictment. The judge has been bribed, so he's not going to, or the judge appears to have been bribed. The judge appears to have been bribed. So, of course, he's not going to put her under indictment at the moment. She's walking scot-free. But once again, the people in South America of Argentina are not having it for a moment. In fact, Milei got absolutely pelted the other day with bottles when he turned up at a public speaking engagement. And, of course, they are starting to destroy branches of the bank that she is wrapped up in this scandal with.
It's not looking good. And of course, in October, they have some legislative elections coming up. So that's not looking necessarily good for him, is it? Because has he gone from hero to zero, or is it not that far yet?
Well, I always said, Sonia, when he got elected, I went, this man is like Boris Johnson. He's not a buffoon. This man is one of the most dangerous men you're ever going to come across. And of course, we didn't fall for his, sort of zany world charm and, the trade unions, this and all the rest, and pulling everything down and doing this, if you like, clown show. He was there at the Wailing Wall, skull cap on before he got elected. He's part of the young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. We saw this guy coming a mile away when everybody else was just going, oh, isn't he? Oh, he seems like a breath of fresh air. Isn't he fantastic? He's not. He's another Boris Johnson. He's another West global leader. And he's another one who is in Israel's pocket.
So what do you think is going to be the outcome of this? Because where are they at the moment? Because these are only accusations at the moment, right?
Yes, but the special prosecutor who was meant to investigate this has suddenly been removed, rather like what happened with Burisma and Joe Biden in Ukraine. The special prosecutor looking into this has been removed. And of course, all charges have at the moment been dropped. But there are one or two people in Argentina, wonderful journalists like yourself, who are digging deep into this. And they're coming up with more and more links to these NGOs, more and more links to money being, more and more links to money being siphoned off in all directions. So she has some things to sort of answer. There are questions to answer. Until she does, the situation's only going to get worse.
It was a lot of hypocrisy as well, because what he did was he barred the idea that relatives could work in public office with you. Yet he put his sister in a position as the Secretary General of the presidency, and she's largely seen as like the architect. So again, it is that same thing, isn't it? Is the rules do not apply to me, but they do apply to you. So like you say, he was never ever going to be anything different either. It frustrates me so much, Warren. It's that Sun Guardian scenario, is that some idiots still believe that the Guardian is better than the Sun. Obviously they're bad as each other, but the Guardian has that air, doesn't it, of like virtue signaling, of niceness and everything. But it's the same kind of thing, isn't it?
Yes, it's just which lunatic is running the asylum, basically. And in Argentina at the moment, there's only a few world leaders out there that you could actually hang your hat on, Sonia.
Tell me, which ones do you think they are?
Orban. Orban is very, very good. I think he's very, very based, very, very sensible. I think also Xi Jinping in China is pretty good. And as much as you might not like Kim Jong-un, he has no nonsense inside his own country. It is not riven with discourse and everything else. And his people absolutely love him. The people who went and fought in Ukraine, do you know what he's actually done for those people? Where Ukraine have basically, and the UK have forgotten about the people who've gone and fought in Ukraine. The family, including the daughters, will receive three times the soldiers' salary that have fallen for the rest of their natural lives, signed into law.
What? That's incredible. Whereas our soldiers are out on the streets homeless and dealing with mental health crisis. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's always quite refreshing to get a different take, obviously. I mean, there'll be people saying, no, he's an absolute dictator and not taking care of his people at all. And you're not telling the true story, but who can ever tell? But I rely on you to be telling me the truth. Talking about, go on. You have good
I've got a photograph of him signing it into law. He actually had them to the palace and signed it into law that they will receive 3 times the salary, the wife and any of the children, until they pass away. So it won't go on to the grandchildren, but it will be for the wife and also for the children.
That's extraordinary, actually. That's extraordinary backup. I mean, I don't believe in war and I hate war and they're rich man's wars and all of that. But if we're going to send people off to war, the least we can do is actually protect them if they should return, because so many don't return. So that's extraordinary. Right. Talk to me about this man. Oh, no, not that man. This man. He looks kind of scary. Dezi Freeman, right?
Yes. Yeah. What we have here is a self-professed prepper. He's also one of these people who believes that the government does not have control over him. And of course, he has been very vocal in that. He was viciously attacked during COVID lockdown for his stance on not wanting to be locked down. And of course, eventually what they did, and there is no history of him creating any sort of sexual violence towards children whatsoever, but they turned up at his door, and during an altercation, he shot 2 police officers dead, another one is injured, and he took off into the bush. Now, despite their best efforts, Sonia, for 6 days, they have literally, and of course the mainstream media are calling him all sorts of horrible things, but he's becoming somewhat of a cult hero in Australia. And this guy has taken off into the bush, and despite night vision goggles and all sorts of helicopters and everything else, and heat-seeking equipment and everything else, they've been unable to find this guy for 6 days. Now, my guess is he's either topped himself somewhere at the bottom of a river, or he is still out there, shall we say, at large. And of course, everybody's saying he's armed and dangerous, but we've got people in Australia turning around and saying they sympathised with this guy who they feel has been victimised, and he's become a sort of anti-hero. And people are offering him everything from shelter to food. If he turns up at my door, fair dues to him. I'll give him some food and send him on his way. I mean, this guy is sort of become a cult hero in Australia, rather like Mangione did in the USA when he executed the CEO.
Yeah, I think it's always very interesting. His name, so he goes by the name of Dezi Freeman because he says he's a sovereign citizen. His real name is Desmond Philby, and he's alleged to have gunned down Detective Senior Constable Neil Thompson and Senior Constable Vadim Devot at a property in Victoria's Alpine region on Tuesday morning. His wife has asked for him to surrender. There's a no-fly zone, which was extended until tomorrow. So I'm not quite sure what's happening there. It also reminds me a bit, do you remember Raoul Moat? And because Raoul Moat was the guy in the UK, a horrible character. But the reason that I think in part that the public kind of got behind him, again, another cop killer, or did he actually kill a cop or did he shoot a cop? But either way, what it is I think the public being so angry with the role that the police play a lot of the time, that's what I think the public are revolting against, the police rather than the act itself. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The way the police behave, you see it in England, you see it all around the world. The other day, there was a video of German police absolutely beating the living daylights out of a pro-Palestine supporter who'd done very little wrong. And of course, you're going to get this, Sonia. Anti-heroes are always out there anyway, and they always have been. Being an outlaw is always seen as a bit glamorous, no matter how much harm or whatever they do. But there's certainly some sympathy, not for the act, but for what forced him to commit the act in the first place. Because apparently the police did single him out, I should say, for special treatment, shall we say.
And we do see that often, don't we, with people who want to kind of live outside the system, preppers. We see that often because obviously the aim of authority is to bring you back within the system because then you're manageable. And so I think it's interesting. Although he is in part kind of like a self-professed kind of cop hater, one of the texts I think that they'd got was like, if I torture a cop for days and video it in 4K until justice is satisfied, said one of his texts. But a lot of people have this understandable anger. I'm sure a lot of people who are out there protesting and being kind of pushed back by the police, they feel a sense of outrage to the police as well. But I think policing is a very, very difficult job, very, very difficult job, and nobody needs to be killed during the line of duty, really, do they? So I'm always torn about those things. But as you say, it's not so much the act as what it all represents.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've only got to look at the likes of Lucy Connolly, who tweeted something stupid and spent time in jail. When you do this thing as an authoritarian state, and let's face it, Victoria and Australia during COVID lockdowns had some of the most brutal punishments for people out there. Of course, you're going to get people who react in this way. We create them. They don't suddenly pop up out of nowhere, Sonia. It is like when you get these people and you decide to muck about with their gender and they eventually lose the plot and they go and shoot up a school or something. We create these people in our society. We should be trying to understand how we do that, why we do that, and putting a stop to it, rather than this is the result of what we put in to these people. And we have to find a way to neutralize that.
Yeah, we do indeed. And you sent me a series of very interesting sort of notes last night. So, what is the CIA covering at this moment in time that you were referring to? What tracks?
Yeah, so basically what we had was one of the massive Ukrainian, shall we say, people who were right at the forefront of the nonsense that was going on in Ukraine in 2014. Now, the original government in 2014 was overthrown. Okay, that was overthrown by the CIA and the National Endowment for Democracy. That was Victoria Nuland and everybody else. They decided that it was time for Ukraine to enter into Western democracy and the IMF loans rather than take the Russian deal that was on the table for cheap gas and 15 billion. And of course, they overthrew Yukhanovich, who was the democratically elected president of Ukraine. When they did this, they had something called the Color Revolution. And of course, what happened there was we were looking at the people who were doing this. And of course, CIA, Victoria Nuland was there handing out loads of bread and soup. And of course, they had that conversation with the ambassador that was videoed and that was actually recorded and sent out. So that became an embarrassment. And along with the National Endowment for Democracy, which is another name for, this is a nice name for the CIA, which is the NGO of the CIA that replaces governments. And what happened was they started with the protests, as they normally do. Then they had violent protests. And then, of course, what we had then was it's not enough. Not enough's happening here. Someone needs to die. And we've heard this before in other protests in Georgia. And of course, then a lot of Georgian chaps went and collected, shall we say, some vehicles from the US Embassy, drove to a hotel called the Hotel Ukraine, where they then started opening fire on the masses that were there, Sonia, killing various people. And then, of course, it blew up, and then they were able to overthrow the government. But one of the gentlemen who was the organisers for these snipers, obviously.
We've nearly got there. We've nearly got there. Let me read some of these. Here we go again. Is that true? A Brit had a visit this weekend from the police and mental health because of his concerns about Australia. They are trying to section us now. Please put me in touch with whomever that is. That sounds nuts. Absolutely nuts. Right? Jan says behavior experts have been changing society with influencers and psyops. Now that I think is absolutely accurate and correct. I think that's the truth. You're doing well. We're nearly there, Warren.
Yeah, one of those keeps dropping out every now and again. Yeah, so you were saying you were talking about somebody in the chat there.
Yes. So no, this is nuts, right? I just read this, but according to this chat, somebody, a Brit had a visit this weekend from the police and from mental health professionals, presumably because of his concerns about Australia. They're trying to section us now. And I've said, put me in touch with whoever that is, because if the police are visiting people now because they have concerns about what is going on in a foreign country, I want to talk to that person, because that's beyond overreach. And Jan had said behavior experts have been changing society with influencers and psyops. And Stephen said, my brother was a policeman in the Met many years ago. He said Blair made the police woke. And Mark has asked me a question, which I feel is kind of like intended to be a gotcha. Right? That's the sense I get from the vibe, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. Ask Warren about President Marcos Jr. and his father, past President Marcos Sr., what they've been up to in the Philippines government. I think the suggestion there is because you're in the Philippines, you're not prepared to talk about what's going on in your own back garden.
No, let's talk about it then. Very, very simple, not a problem whatsoever. So basically what has happened is Duterte was the pro-Chinese candidate. He was going to run against Marcos. Marcos Jr., of course, Marcos gave all the gold, their gold, to America, which is still in America. Marcos Jr., of course, is a puppet of literally Duterte was the pro-Chinese candidate. He was arrested, even though there is no jurisdiction, even though there is no jurisdiction, and the Philippines is not a signatory to the ICC. Marcos had Duterte fly to the ICC, where he was then taken into The Hague, even though they have no jurisdiction whatsoever. So that was Marcos getting rid of one political opponent. And then his daughter, who was also in the government, Zara Duterte, was first of all arrested, then released, and then they tried to impeach her. And the court overturned that and said it was a completely unjust impeachment. So what we've got, before war breaks out, we may be using the Philippines as a proxy in the war over Taiwan. The Philippines will obviously be used as a huge launching base by the Americans should that come about, and I honestly believe it will. What we had was them trying to get rid, first of all, of the opposition in Duterte Sr., and then, of course, trying to get rid of his daughter so that she couldn't run against him in the next elections, which were in 2028.
What's on your table this week, Warren, before you leave us?
On my table this week, I'll be digging further into what's going on with the Ukrainians there, what's going on with the Ukrainians and who was responsible for the Maidan massacre and the trade union massacre as well. We also ought to be looking, they are getting ready for round two, and they're trying to nudge that closer and closer.
Wait, I missed that. Getting ready for round two of what?
Israel versus Iran, launching rockets, the US, Venezuela. They didn't sail there just to put up a show. They're actually going to do something there, Sonia.
Thank you for joining us. I know it's a bit tricky, bit challenging, but you've been ace as ever, everybody. This is Warren Thornton. You can catch him. Is it tonight? You're on your show 5 days a week, right? Is that right? Warren, are you on your show 5 days a week? Poor Warren, he's been having one of those days. Warren, I'll see you later, mate. Take care. Lovely to see you.
Everybody. Thank you very much indeed.
Catch him at warrenthornton.com. What an absolute star that man is. Lovely to see you, mate. Take good care of yourself. Lovely to see you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Right. First of all, thank you so much, Cheeky Monkey, for your super chat. I was going to call you out later, actually, because I didn't see, like you left a comment about super chat on Friday. I didn't see your name. But you are a generous soul, and I appreciate that greatly. Thank you so much. And let me just address this. Somebody saying that Rupert Lowe has called out both halal and where is it? Let me find that. The poor connection was not your fault. Indeed, Merv. Warren, great as always. Indeed, he was. And it was... let me find it. Somebody saying that I can't find it. I'm going to repeat it. And it's to do with Rupert Lowe calling out both halal and it's annoying. It's annoying. Yeah. And obviously, kosher. And the fact is, Rupert Lowe systematically fails to call out kosher. The only reason that he finally called out kosher was because people kept saying to him, you're only talking about halal. Rupert Lowe wakes up and is absolutely obsessed with Muslims. You can tell his bias. Now, I don't doubt that there are some things that Rupert Lowe is absolutely representing some people on. I don't doubt that. And we need people like that. We absolutely do. But he strikes me as a popularist MP. And what we actually need is people to get off social media and actually get get moving properly. Now, I know he has done more in terms of like the grooming gangs in a matter of months than some MPs have done in a lifetime of their career in Parliament. And those things I do acknowledge. I do. And I think it's important too. But in terms of that, he is absolutely biased and there is no getting around it. He is very reluctant to mention anything to do with kosher. But halal, he'll say it immediately. Thank you, Swiss Miss, you star. And thank you, Cheeky Monkey. They want rid of all meat, says Stephen. Hi, Neil. Hi, Neil. Lovely to see you. Maybe. And Randy said, my bird's been sitting on the fridge all this live so far, not fighting, just having some conversation. I cannot read. Okay, got you. Well, 333 Kingdom, please send me where he absolutely did mention it early, because I can send you many tweets where he only mentions halal, right? Many tweets. And I think, honestly, we have to be more honest. Okay, this goes back to what I'm saying is that I'm not party political. If somebody does something good, which I believe that Tommy Robinson's work around the grooming gangs was something good, something worthy, something brave, right? And I'm not even a fan, right? But I'm prepared to acknowledge it. So I'm not political. So I think it's not a good look when you're only always looking on one side of it, right? He's mentioned it because people like me said to him, when are you going to start mentioning kosher, Rupert? That's why. I was also dealing with that. Suella called it out. Don't know what you're talking about, Paddy, but sounds interesting. Right. We will be welcoming our next guest. Feisty morning, isn't it, people? Right. What do I want to talk about in the meantime? And I am deeply concerned about rabble rousers. You have people like Russell Brand, who does videos saying it's starting, England is about to erupt. And then you see people in lockstep. And I saw these kind of accounts like Jennifer Arcuri, Ben Wine, and they're all saying the same thing. You can feel the tension rising in the UK. The tension in Britain is palpable. You can really feel it. You can feel the tension rising in the UK tonight. We can feel it partly because there are so many people on social media telling us that this is happening. For the most part, the UK is not about to riot, and we should be really careful about people who are talking about rioting, because that is problem, reaction, solution. Now, if you want martial law where we are locked down from 6 p.m. every night, then sure. Let's encourage that. Let's encourage what they're saying, England erupt. We don't want that. What we want is a proper, decent solution. And a lot of those people who are protesting, they are doing it with good heart. They are concerned people. They don't want to riot. There will always be agent provocateurs, as Warren said. They're on both sides as well. I make no distinction. Between who's who. And if they're a troublemaker, they're a troublemaker. And that is that. Right. What on earth is going on in the Scottish Parliament, by the way? Let's change the mode slightly, because I think this is interesting. Last week, I talked about member of the Scottish Parliament, Colin Smith. He was arrested and charged with child abuse images. And now we hear that at least 5 members of the Scottish Parliament, along with several journalists and staff, have been contacted by police over alleged secret toilet recordings in the Scottish Parliament. Okay, so detectives have begun interviewing people. They've already identified people from the footage, and it's understood to be from a covert camera, which is hidden in a cubicle in the Scottish Parliament. So far, officers have identified at least 5 parliamentarians, right, as well as 1 journalist, several other staff members. All those identified are male. They were captured by the device allegedly concealed in a small men's loo opposite the main parliamentary chamber. Which kind of makes a change from the English parliamentary loos, where, remember that time when they said that they found more traces of cocaine and crack cocaine than they do in London nightclubs. So it's quite interesting. Cameras in the Scottish Parliament, covert cameras in the Scottish Parliament, and cocaine in the British Parliament. Choices, priorities. But a source told press that they were working to identify those caught on camera while using the toilet. They said some members of the Scottish Parliament have already been interviewed about it. They had to confirm it was them for the footage. They are still going through it all, as there could be people who they can't identify for whatever reason in the films, as their faces aren't actually visible. Sources said between 8 and 10 people have been identified by police so far. And it's interesting. Parliamentary spokespeople talking about the arrest of Smith said that it wasn't until 3 days after his arrest that police made them aware of images potentially taken at the Scottish Parliament. They said the identity of the person being identified for those images was not disclosed to them. And to date, they have no confirmation that these lines of inquiry relate to Colin Smith. The camera, as I say, was hidden in the Scottish Parliament. What a to-do. What a to-do. Right. And also, really, I object most strongly to this, which is taking place. Do you know who this is? This is Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden. He's suggested a digital ID card for every Briton, the Brit card. the BRIC card. And he said it could help to combat illegal immigration and benefit fraud. Absolute lie, absolute lie. When Tony Blair was in power, so from 1997 onwards, for a decade plus onwards, they absolutely wanted the same thing then. They wanted national ID. Tony Blair is very much behind the digital push, obviously, and they'll use whatever they can. That is the reality. And this man, Pat McFadden, he's the Labour MP for Wolverhampton South East, said that the UK was behind the curve in terms of technology and could implement a system similar to the Baltic state of Estonia, where its citizens are actually given a unique identification number. You are not a person, you are a number. And what Estonians can do with that is they can register their births, their marriages, their divorces, their deaths. They can vote, they can book GP appointments, they can access their bank accounts. Yeah, but what when it gets withheld? Because that is the reality, obviously, of digital ID, is that they like to sell us this idea that it's going to be absolutely wonderful and you'll be able to identify everybody. You can never identify everybody in a country. Of that much, I'm absolutely certain. And what they want to do with the BRIC card is they want to make it mandatory. They want to make it universal. And essentially, it's a digital wallet. That's the idea. And the problem, of course, well, there's many problems. The state will control us. Once they have us in a digital ID wallet system, they will control us. And I've talked about this in terms of a cashless society before. It is obvious. It's evident. It's absolutely as clear as the nose on my face that is what will happen. It will be essentially a social credit score. Did you get your vaccination? Uh-oh, we're going to withhold your privileges for this. And it will also create a digital divide because not everybody is digitalized, okay? Not everybody. You've got vulnerable groups. There'll be the elderly. There'll be people with disabilities who may actually have reduced access to online services. And I think this is the stuff that we really should also come together and oppose. Is this sort of stuff. And I don't see people protesting against state overreach. That I don't see. And that always concerns me. Because if we targeted more state overreach and sending us into these, rich man wars, it might actually solve a multitude of other problems. But maybe that's not what people want. And just briefly, before I bring in my next two guests, I mentioned last week, I want to refer to this again. I mentioned last week that a DWP whistleblower had come to me about someone who had an interest in me and whom her department was watching as part of a new initiative. And the idea is, if you can make online videos, if you can write blogs, if you can be on social media regularly, you could be doing a job based from home. That's what the DWP are working on right now. They are looking at our digital print. That's what they're doing. Well, obviously, they're also doing more. They're also focusing now on people who have left the UK but continue to claim various benefits. And they are not interested in going after the tax avoidance schemes. They're not. They're not. Tax avoidance is legal. Tax evasion is illegal. And either are both skipping free. Well, we are all focused on the little people. Don't get me wrong. I do actually believe that I'm somebody who believes in the power of work, but work that you want to do. Too many people are doing shitey jobs that they don't want to do, and that they just feel they're on a hamster wheel. And I think we need to be far more inspirational as a country and enable people to follow their dreams appropriately. Very few people want to spend their lives wherever, on a production line or cleaning windows, but some people do. And if they do, that's also great as well, because get in where you fit in. But there are people doing jobs that they don't want to do, and they have to just show up because they are forced to. And that is not good for anybody's mental health. We need to be far more aspirational for people. That is my take on it. Yeah, that's my take on it. I'm going to bring in my guests now, right? I'm going to bring in my guests. Here they are, Alistair Williams, Tanya Edwards. Hello, you two.
Hi. Morning.
Good morning. You're going on tour, aren't you? I said to you when you came on with us a few months ago, I said, come back on before you go on tour and remind us. And I was just looking at your tour details. Some of them are already sold out, kids. And have you been adding more dates already? So when do you start? You start this Friday in Northampton.
This Friday we're in Northampton, and that's big. So there's lots of tickets still for that. And we've done really
well. A few
well.
Available, yeah. A couple.
well, there's a 900-seater, Alistair, but
true, yeah.
Saturday is in London, and that's going to sell out soon, so you need to get your tickets for that. And then, yeah, we've sold out in a few places in Scotland, looking brilliant. So I'm really pleased. I've just put in some others, Rotherham, Isle of Man, lots of places, basically. And every day I'm adding new ones in. So
how exciting. You two have toured before, have you? You've certainly worked together before, haven't you?
Well, I've opened for lots of people on their tours. Catherine Ryan, Jeff Norcott. Obviously, Alistair and I have got a different style, probably. But we've been working together a lot in London at Top Secret and been selling that show out for about a year and a half now. So we thought we'd leave London. Alistair's prodded me to leave London.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Alistair, what's on your agenda? What can we expect from you on these shows? What are you looking at?
Well, it's like this type of stuff you talk about on your show here, but in stand-up comedy form. You know what I mean? Like me and Tanya are both sort of awake, I guess you would say. And there's very few sort of awake comedians, and the ones that are, like me and Tanya, they don't really let tour. They don't let us go on TV. So we booked our own tour. We've booked our own rooms. And, you know, if you want to see real stand-up comedy, like real stand-up comedy, how it used to be, this is pretty much the only place to come. It's a great tour to come to. If you've got some friends that are not awake, that you want to wake up, bring them to our comedy show. We'll wake them up for you. It'll be great.
I definitely think that, because what I've noticed is, I tried to explain this before, but when you write stand-up, you're trapped in a persona, basically. You're instantly perceived in a certain way by the room. There's nothing that you can do about that instant impression. And so sometimes it clashes with the person's idea of themselves or their actual temperament in real life. I can't go on stage and pretend I'm all right, let's get on the fun train comedian, because people would think I was having some kind of nervous breakdown. So you have to work with how you're seen. But since all of these ridiculous ideas of social conformism have come into play, people doing stand-up, they're not just playing with this character that they understand that they're seen in a certain way, that they're now also trying to play with the idea of not disagreeing with anything that the broad mass thinks. And they don't even mean the broad mass, because they don't know what those people think, because they don't talk to them and they're never out. They're just watching television or receiving material from which to work or listening to algorithms. But that's not what people find instinctively amusing. And it's not, because it isn't. I mean, that's pretty basic. So you can't write jokes like that. And so that's why I think lots of the clubs now, they're suffering, because it's like listening to a different take on some sort of manifesto. It's not really, Alistair and I tell jokes, classic old school jokes. And it's just, and afterwards we always go out for a meet and greet. And because the people that know us have had to find us rather than have us forced down their throats every week on Sewing Bee, the people that come to see us, they're like-minded, and we all go out for a pint afterwards. And so it's really fun, just socially, as a catch-up as well.
Humor is a funny thing, because obviously in comedy, a lot of it's to do with timing as well. But the one thing that I absolutely cannot stand is what comedy has become, which obviously in terms of the mainstream, it's very sanitized, all the canned laughter, which has been going on forever anyway. But it just is so deeply unfunny. Like, they're not prepared to challenge anything. We've been talking about this over the last few years. I've talked about this with both of you. Have we? And I did wonder whether some of it was as a response to the draconian measures that were taking place around C-19. But has the state of play not improved them? I would suggest, from what you've just said, Tanya, it certainly hasn't. If anything, it's even worse than before.
I think that some of it is actually a sort of social illness now. We've reached such a, there used to be a comedy trope, which you'd have seen in a million shows, where one character would basically be describing the other character to them, and that character would have no idea that it was them that was being mocked. Do you remember that? So I would describe what your attributes, and you wouldn't realize, and everyone would be laughing at the fact that I was telling you to your face everything about you and you had no idea. But that comedy trope is dead, because now everybody thinks that they're being spoken about at all times, because the narcissism has got to such a point of illness that anyone hears anything at all and thinks, oh, they're being mean about me. The only way to detach someone from self-involvement in your gag is to make it so far removed from them that then they position themselves immediately as the savior of that person. They've lost the ability to let go of themselves, and even for the duration of 10 or 15 minutes, they think that even if they're enjoying that thing, if they've managed to let go of themselves enough to enjoy it, then they're already thinking about how they can record it and tweet about it later. It's quite strange.
I mean, That takes all the fun out of it, doesn't it? That sounds like the least humorous thing possible, all of that sort of agenda-led stuff. And obviously we have comedians like Ricky Gervais, and I think both of you have balked when I've talked before about how, well, at least he was standing up and being counted. Yeah, but again, very mainstream, because he did nothing during C19, did he? Alistair, do you have to be, a serious question, do you think that in order to be able to get that kind of mainstream coverage, be that on TV channels or on Netflix or wherever, do you have to be part of the agenda, or can you be a genuine radical?
That famous? No chance. It was very clear during the COVID times, wasn't it? How many people who are that level of fame had any sort of opinion other than go and get vaccinated as soon as you can? That's when it was made really obvious. Like all these rock stars that are supposed to be super cool were like, get vaccinated, guys. You can't come and see our show. It's like, wait a minute, what? Like, every single one of them, with the exception of a couple of people who are not that famous and who aren't that famous anymore, like Matt Letitia is a great example of, all these footballers keep collapsing on the middle of the field and having heart attacks, and he's the only guy who says, wait a minute, this is a bit weird, isn't it? How come they're all having heart attacks? It's like, you're fired.
That's right.
You're weird. Right. You're off the TV. It's like, that's what happens to you if you actually take the kind of line that me and Tanya take. And that's why, we're doing our own tour. We're booking our own rooms, because stand-up comedy is actually really important. It's part of the British national identity. Is when things are going wrong, we sort of laugh at it, and it's a real
in our heritage. 100%. It absolutely is.
And that's why they're ruining comedy on purpose. That's why all the comedy on TV is selected. They select comedians who are awful, and then they stick them on your television, and you think, oh, comedy's dead in this country. No one's funny anymore. It's like, no, they're picking the worst ones. No offense to people on TV.
I don't think this is bad, though. If we lose our attachment to this idea that quality is quantity, oh, but 1,000 people like this. Well, it's still absolute dross. Who cares?
That's right.
But I think if we lose, it doesn't. Who wants to be? The kind of fame that people have now become used to, where it's ubiquitous, and for a fact that these people aren't churning out these rubbish books every week and also spending 24 hours a day on sort of whatever TV program they're on. That they're not possibly doing that themselves, because to produce that much crap takes physical effort. So I just think that it doesn't even matter who wants to have a platform that's so big and so inauthentic that you're just another branch of the government, basically. I think God bless people when they're slightly lower down the rung. And obviously, everything I'm saying about social media and sharing and adoration does not apply to me and Alistair. You can share all the details.
Share away.
You can buy all the You can tweet about it relentlessly. You can advertise for us, of course. But I think on the bigger scale, it's nonsense anyway. I don't no one's pretending any of it's real. No one's pretending the faces are real, the fans are real, the material's real. It's a sort of strange simulation in real time. That's the only that's
they're
true.
like real life AI now, aren't they? They're like real life bots. So I think the other interesting thing that we've also talked about, all three of us before separately and together, is the issue of cancel culture. Now, Tanya, obviously you've worked extensively with Bob Moran, and he was cancelled variously, and certainly his live shows. Are you not concerned about that? Because you're not part of the agenda. You're not part of the status quo. I'm sure some of the things that you will be saying will be deeply un-PC.
Well,
go on.
Well, it's interesting with the Bob show. So I used to do a charity gig. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I used to do a charity gig at the Bloomsbury Theatre. And Bob and I, we sold out the Bloomsbury Theatre with Artpocalypse. And subsequently, this charity gig just said, oh, do you mind doing a spot? I said, of course not. It's unpaid. I've done it before. It's not unbilled. You're not really, no one sees you much in the advertising, just the people on the mailing list of the charity. Anyway, he called me back and he said, I'm really sorry, but can I put you on a different night? I said, of course, but may I ask why? And he said, have you worked recently at the Bloomsbury Theatre? So even though we completely followed all of the rules at the Bloomsbury Theatre and we sold out that theatre for them, they then made sure that I couldn't even work there in my capacity as a stand-up, unpaid, free at a charity night. So you're supposed to know that if you don't go along with certain things, you're not welcome. Having said that, I'm not at all worried about being cancelled, because as far as I can be, I have been. But at the same time, I think that the interesting thing for me personally is that when you are free, you make mistakes. I work in a character on stage, but in real life, I talk as myself. And then obviously sometimes those two personas switch over, and you can sound quite rude because you suddenly forget that you're not in character in that moment, or you can. And it used to be a clear divide, and I don't know if it's because of social media or that you're building something off your natural sense of humor. You make mistakes. So Alistair and I were going to be doing these shows, and they're going to be real, and some, it's going to be. That's what I first loved about comedy, is that sometimes it would be terrific, and sometimes you'd make mistakes, and you'd be able to kind of crawl back from them, or suddenly make it the best show you'd ever had. But you had a genuine feeling that something was at stake. And I think that that's the only thing I ever worry about in terms of anything, because it's when your pride starts to come into play, you then rehash stuff that you don't need to say again, or you attach to a certain level of laughter. This is going to be quite good for us, I think, to just go around the country and do different stuff and meet new people. It's going to be fun, Alistair, isn't it?
It's exciting. It's exciting. Alistair, give us a final word before you leave us this morning.
A final word. Oh, yes. Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, if people want real comedy to survive in this country, you need to come and see us on tour. You're going to have the time of your life. It's going to be the best evening of your life. I think we're all agreed on that.
Oh,
and I think you need to get the tickets right now while you still can, because there's not many left. Okay.
If I haven't already, I will put a link in the description. And of course, Alistair and Tanya kick off on Friday at Northampton at the Old Savoy Theatre. And plenty of tickets there, so go grab them. Lovely to have you both.
London Saturday, that's almost run out, so you need to get this straight away.
London is at the Secret Comedy, right, on Saturday, and then Totnes, which is Saturday the 20th of September after that. But there's a whole list. Actually, did I even put up? Oh, right. No, I haven't. Naughty me. I did have it prepared, and it seems to have disappeared, your tour date list. So forgive me, but I will put a link in the description to where people can purchase tickets from you. Lovely to see you both this Monday morning, everybody. Absolute pleasure. Alistair Williams and Tanya Edwards, and they are on tour. It's going to be fun. Have a wonderful day. Take good care of yourself. Enjoy your tour. Wonderful. How exciting. Do you know what? I love that sensation of live events. They are exciting, and they're wonderfully organic, because as Tanya said, you're allowed to make mistakes, and it's kind of nice, and it just makes a nice change. Thanks both. Wishing you every success with the show, says Jackie. Best of luck, says John. Great. I'll go to the Totnes one, says Vanessa. Love them, says Christine. Right. They have a good what in France? Don't know what that is. You're very welcome. You will laugh hard when they tax your farts. I mean, even though, right, we know that sounds ridiculous. A lot of things have sounded ridiculous that they're now doing, right? And come to Chipping Wilts. Is that Chippenham? Don't talk to me about Radio 2. What a horrible establishment. I worked on Radio 2 for at least a decade on the Jeremy Vine show. It's very, very establishment there. Again, the thing about my role in mainstream media is I was allowed to be the kind of the outside one, because they need that. They need that to give the illusion that there's any kind of democracy at all taking place in mainstream media. Right. What shall we talk about next? This, I think I want to talk about. Let me see if I've got some imagery to accompany it. Let me just see. Yes, we have. I'm sure you probably recognize these people. One is Stephen Lawrence, who was murdered in an attack by 5 to 6 men. Well, the other one is David Norris, who was jailed for life in 2012 to do with the murder of Stephen Lawrence. And what's going to be happening with David Norris, and this is quite rare, there was an application for a public hearing for his parole hearing, because he was due up for parole December last year. And there was an application for a public hearing, and it was actually granted, and it's now going to be, and it was supposed to be in May of this year, and for whatever reason, it was put off, and now it's been rescheduled to the start of October. So what you're going to have is on October the 7th and October the 8th will be in public, and then there'll be a third day on October the 10th, presumably for deliberations. And this, as I say, is one of the men involved in the murder of Stephen Lawrence, and it is a rare 3-day face-to-face public parole hearing. It is very rare indeed. A bit of background. I was just reading the details to to do with the permission to have the public parole. And the background is, on the 4th of January 2012, Mr. David Norris was sentenced to a life sentence with a tariff, i.e. the minimum term that he could serve, of 14 years and 3 months for murder. The tariff expired on 8th of December 2024. Mr. Norris was age 16 when he committed the offence, and the facts of the case are well known. This was an unprovoked, racially motivated murder by a gang of 5 or 6. The 6th one has routinely got away without being identified in public. And one of the greatest things that ever happened regarding this, and I was very proud to be associated with the Daily Mail when they did this, is the Daily Mail put on their front page about these 5 guys and said that we believe these 5 men murdered Stephen Lawrence and we challenge you to sue us. And of course they didn't sue. It was a very highly publicized murder, which led to a full-scale police investigation of the Metropolitan Police, because the Metropolitan Police arrived and immediately made out that Stephen and Dwayne Brooks, his friend, were the villains immediately. This happened on the 22nd of April 1993. Stephen was, they were in Plumstead, southeast London. Stephen and Dwayne were waiting at a bus stop on Wellhall Road, Eltham. And the case became, excuse me, a cause célèbre for many people. And the fallout, they said, led to change of attitude within the Metropolitan Police. I doubt that. It takes a lot more to change attitudes within the Metropolitan Police. And the irony is that these racists, they went after Dwayne and Stephen because these racists believed that they were superior. But both Dwayne and Stephen were not only academically superior to these racists, but they were heading for a career. Stephen was heading to be an architect. Dwayne has been involved in politics, but these thugs have done nothing with their life except largely live on the state, on my money. And I object to that. I object to that a lot. And there's only 2 of them, Norris and another, who have been convicted of this crime anyway. Norris is up for it. He's not going to be there in person. He'll be on a live link. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what the outcome of that is, because it's such a considerable case in England, and it says so much about the police approach and about the corruption that took place within the police as well, because David Norris's father is a kind of like was known as like a gangster in the area, and there was the idea that Norris's father was involved with the police. The police did not play straight. The police were part of the problem. And Sir William Macpherson, who held the public inquiry, concluded that the investigation was not only incompetent, but that the force was institutionally racist. It's institutionally a lot of things, and institutionally racist is one of those things. And so I might try and be there for that. We shall see. We shall see indeed. I want to refer to this because this is so absurd. This is something that grinds my gears on a regular basis, but I suspect we're getting close to the end of it now. This, of course, is, you can see, the world's most famous missing child, Madeleine McCann. And next to her is an image of Christian Bruckner. And I'm always loath to put these 2 side by side because I have never associated them together, because they're not associated, actually. It is a figment of the imagination of the German police, the German prosecutors, and British mainstream media that these 2 are linked. And they've tried their damnedest. And Christian Bruckner is, to all intents and purposes, a thoroughly disgusting human being, but he's due for release in a matter of weeks. He's been serving a 7-year prison sentence after being convicted in 2019 for the rape of a 72-year-old American woman in Portugal in 2005. He was acquitted of a separate rape charge at a trial last year, where they attempted to shoehorn poor Madeleine McCann into it to such a degree that they brought in detectives working on Operation Grange, the British police investigation, to testify, to say that Christian Bruckner's name they'd come across his name in files. And they have all attempted to shoehorn this man into being the one responsible for taking missing Madeleine. Well, I've said right from the beginning, when he was first brought out into the sunshine, which was July 2020 during C19, and he was all over mainstream media and all the usual suspects, you know, This Morning, all the pushers of the abduction narrative. And I said, this is a lie. This it doesn't even add up. It makes no absolute sense. And many people did, and they used old information about him again to try and nail him. And the German police and the German prosecutor, Hans Wolters, has been absolutely determined. But it's over. It is over. But my concern is a genuine one. And this one, I think I probably do share with them to a degree, is I believe him to be a dangerous man. And I mean, anybody capable of some of the things that he's done is dangerous. So obviously, there is a great concern there, and he will need to be watched and I think probably monitored, because I don't know. At the moment, they are debating whether to fit him with an electronic tag or not. And they're saying that the release is understood to be between the 7th and the 17th of September. Well, that's next week. And whatever else he's done, taking Madeleine McCann was not one of those things. And I think all of the people and all the organizations that have got involved to push that are reprehensible. And I include in that the Sun newspaper, Channel 4, and they bodged together this documentary recently, one of the worst that I've had the misfortune of reviewing, and they bodged it together, and they've got so many intangibles about this man, and that includes people that he has allegedly attacked, but again, nothing related to Madeleine McCann other than he was in Portugal, and many people were in Portugal. And one of the reasons that I object to it so strongly is that whenever a fake narrative like this is pushed, whether it's about Christian Bruckner or about, you know, Madeleine still being alive and fake Madeleine surfacing and everything, is it distracts us from getting to the real truth of the matter, from drilling down and getting to the nub of the problem of what really happened. And that obviously benefits the people who are ultimately responsible. But it certainly doesn't benefit British taxpayers. And we're still paying through the nose for Operation Grange. It's very wrong indeed. And they just failed hand over fist. I've actually seldom seen a situation like this where the police and the media have come together so strongly to try and make a crime fit an individual. That's extraordinary stuff. It's extraordinary stuff. So anyway, it's all over. It's all over. They've tried and it's failed. And as I say, I am concerned about him as a human being and other people's safety, but I'm not concerned about him to do with Madeleine McCann. And I still know, as indeed does everybody, that the people who were there when Madeleine went missing are the people who have yet to be thoroughly investigated. They certainly haven't been investigated by Operation Grange, the British investigation, which has cost a minimum of £14 million. And they've not been investigated. They were ruled out right from the start. And many people know that this is a problematic investigation, to say the least. I believe it's absolutely a cover-up, which implicates a series of prime ministers, as well as a series of home secretaries. Home secretaries' job is to keep permitting these payments to be handed over to the Metropolitan Police to continue with Operation Grange. So they're trying to bamboozle us with lies, and all they really need to do is they need to properly, thoroughly investigate the people who were there. That's as good a starting point as any. I mean, child protection officers will tell you that when a child goes missing, it is a high probability that it was somebody around the child who had access to the child who was involved with the disappearance of that child. And yet the 9 adults, 6 of them doctors, have hardly been investigated, like a cursory investigation. They refused to do a reconstruction, except for a Channel 4 program by detectives that they had hired out of money that was given by the public, which after a few days they said they would need for legals. I don't know how much legal expenditure you have when a child goes missing. Surely the money should be in the campaign to find her. But we all know that that is not the case, and that has not happened. And I'm still waiting to find out what on earth happened with Julia Wandel, because she was supposed to have a hearing in August. I don't think that's happened. I can't find details of it. And if you know about it, do let me know, because they've held her for the maximum time that they can in remand. Julia Wandel, of course, is accused of harassing the McCann family. She's due in court. The trial is in October, but in August they were supposed to be having a hearing to determine whether she should be released. At the moment she's being held on remand, and so I'm not quite sure what happened there. It's quite interesting, curious stuff. And when that trial is over, boy, do I have a story to tell you about what has happened to me during this trial. Boy, do I have a story to tell you, which I can't tell you at this moment in time because I will be in trouble, like seriously in trouble. But once this case is over, that's it. No holds barred. No holds barred. Right. Do you know what? The story of Virginia Giuffre continues to sadden me very, very deeply. And obviously, one of the reasons that it saddens me is that she's not here to defend herself. She's not here to defend herself because we were told that she killed herself in her Australian farmhouse in April. And she, of course, is probably one of the most well-known, famous women who has alleged that she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to a number of people, including Prince Andrew. And the story that's come out this weekend, again, is extremely sad. And that is when there was this agreement to settle between her and Prince Andrew, because obviously Prince Andrew didn't want it to go to court. And what was happening was that the Queen had, I don't know, one of her Jubilee festivities coming up. She wanted this out of the way, off the table. So Virginia Giuffre was reportedly paid approximately 10 to 12 million pound. And then there was additional money, which was to be for the charity that she was involved with, which was Source, Speak Out, Act, Reclaim. It was founded by her. And the idea was, let me just look at some of the details here. The idea was that some of the money would go to the charity. And I think it was a significant amount. Was it about £30,000? I'm just looking to see what it was. Anyway, the story that's come out this weekend is none of that money has found its way to the charity, which is extremely sad. And of course, it immediately creates this assumption that she did something with the money. But it's not always like that. The legal structure can be terrible in terms of situations like this. And I would be very reluctant to blame her at all. I think she was obviously a deeply troubled individual. There was some stuff that she said that was clearly not the truth, but there was other stuff that was the truth. But that also could be the result of a traumatized mind. When people are traumatized, they don't always remember everything. They don't always remember every cough and spit, but they do remember being trafficked. And I unquestionably believe she was trafficked because there's a lot of imagery there to prove it. So unquestionably, I believe that she was a young trafficked girl. I also think that it's highly likely that one of the things that led up to her taking her own life was an estrangement from her children and the problems with her ex. There's allegations that she was battered, that she was involved in a domestic violence situation. There could be all manner of reasons why that money didn't reach the charity. But when I read this, the onus was very much like, oh, here's another reason why she killed herself, because she did something with the money. Now, all of that may be true. I don't know. But what I do know is it's not a given. When money is given in settlements like this, it can take a while to go through legal channels, although 3 years is an awful long time. Awful long time, because I understand that she received her settlement quite quickly, but the charity did not. And now the charity I don't think is even functioning. Because the idea was that they were going to formally launch as a non-profit group, but it lost its charitable status in 2023. So that was also obviously part of the delay. But either way, I'm sad for her. I'm sad for her, not necessarily because I believed everything she said or any of those things, or I supported her, because I knew people that she was horrible to. I knew other survivors that she was horrible to, and I've talked to them and I've interviewed them. But I'm really sad for her because this is a really sad life. You were essentially let down by your parents, taken back in by your father, got a job at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, picked up by Ghislaine Maxwell, involved in the trafficking operation to do with Epstein and his mates, and then an alleged domestic violence situation, which is a pattern. many of us who come from kind of dysfunctional childhoods, we often get involved in dysfunctional relationships later on. That happens unless you can resolve them. So I just feel sad for her. My heart goes out to her. And as I said, I have to agree with everything she said, to know that this is a genuinely sad story, and not least because there are children left behind. It feels sad. It feels sad. And whenever I see an image of her now, I automatically feel sad. You know, when like situations, smells or anything can just influence your mood. As soon as I see a picture of her, I get a sense of sadness, which overwhelms me every time without fail. It's horrible. It's horrible stuff. Rest in peace. I think very troubled life indeed. This is very curious. Richard D. Hall, of course, researcher, and been through a type of hell. I think now that he's dealing with bankruptcy to do with the Manchester Arena ruling. So Richard D. Hall, as many of you know, had an alternative take on what took place at Manchester Arena when we were told that a bomb went off and people were killed. And Richard D. Hall very much disputed that and disputed some of the main players involved. And they accused him of harassment. And he lost his case for harassment at the High Court. And he's now dealing. Obviously, he's been made bankrupt, but this is really concerning, what seems to have taken place. So he did an update about people asking about his current situation. I'm going to read it directly, because there's what he's saying here is he turned up for one hearing, and actually it turned out to be another kind of hearing, which in itself is really problematic, right? So he said people have been asking for an update on the situation and asking when the hearing to hear my application to set aside the bankruptcy will be heard. Unfortunately, the online hearing, which occurred on 18th of August 2025, which we were led to believe in emails and letters, was a directions hearing. A directions hearing is where you decide the next steps, the next moves. But then he goes on to say, turned out to be the full hearing. Well, that's alarming because, you know, you prepare bundles prior to a hearing. So they wouldn't have had the prep or anything they needed for the hearing there. So that's really problematic. And he said, as such, we had not submitted any evidence to the court. That's my point. How could they have done if they thought it was a directions hearing? Well, they would have submitted enough for a directions hearing, but certainly not enough for a trial. And he said, at the hearing, the judge ruled against me and ordered that, 1, the application to set aside the statutory demand is dismissed. 2, the bankruptcy petition may be issued forthwith. He said, went on to say, there will probably be a bankruptcy hearing at Merthyr Tydfil Law Courts, and I will provide an update if and when I get notice of it. And then he talks about his son, Lewis, which makes me, again, very sad. He said, in response to the situation that my son, Lewis, age 10, is now in, who is facing losing his family home due to the ongoing legal action, Andrew Johnson has kindly set up a trust which is taking contributions to help Lewis. And you can find out more details on Richard Hall's site about that. Andrew Johnson has been with us before and hopefully will join us again to talk about 9/11. That's so disturbing that a child is losing his home. That's so disturbing. Makes me sad, really makes me sad. And I've had a number of people on here who have highly disputed the Manchester Arena official narrative. And I think it was almost given that Richard could not hope to have any joy in court because that's all been done and dusted. There's been an inquiry of which many of the so-called eyewitnesses were not even called. And so that narrative has now gone down. It takes a lot to unpack that. Richard is coming in and saying it didn't happen like that. There's a whole lot of stuff that he would have to be able to present. But what was also interesting was that when he did give something of his own testimony in his defense, all of that was printed in mainstream media. So even though they had attempted not to hear what Richard had to say, in the end it started to come out anyway. Nick is reminding me of the role of Mariana Spring in this. Mariana Spring, of course, is known as, what is she, the disinformation correspondent at the BBC. She's absolutely instrumental in this. We cannot forget that, Nick, and that is true and that is fair, because she and her crew turned up at his shop and they targeted him. When you have the might of the BBC behind you, and before that happened, he wasn't being sued. He was only sued after that, once the BBC got involved. So Mariana Spring, I've often said, she was selected for the role because she didn't have the experience. She was a greenhorn. She didn't have the experience for that job, but she was given this incredible job, and because she was selected for the role. Yeah, she's not okay. She's not okay at all. So yeah, Richard D. Hall is going through it, really. Now, today, I'm an animal lover, as many of you know, much more so than humans half the time. And I say that with no issues attached to it whatsoever. I'm becoming increasingly tired of human behavior, but animals, no, not at all. And today, Rob from Protect the Wild, which is a grassroots group protecting animals and wildlife. I've interviewed Rob before. He's going to spend the next 24 hours, because it's the start of Parliament today, he's going to spend the next 24 hours running around Parliament to raise awareness. He said, I'm doing something a little mental. I will be walking for 24 hours straight, so running and walking around Parliament in protest at this government's lack of action for animals. It is going to be mentally and physically exhausting, but hopefully well worth it. I am also doing it to raise funds for Protect the Wild. We're so close to our target goal, so any last minute support is appreciated. And what he goes on to say is that Labour promised to lead an animal welfare revolution. Of course, they always do, don't they? But none of them do. He said they stood on a platform of action, and a year later, we're still waiting while animals are slaughtered, still waiting while wild places are bulldozed, still waiting while promises are broken and the farming lobbies call the shots. They are not leading, they are hiding. And of course, when he talks about the farming lobbies calling the shots, I don't think he's actually talking about kind of grassroots farmers. And I'm going to show you a video shortly where I went at the weekend to this phenomenal farm. My next big goal is to be able to acquire some land and start a pick your own farm. I'm absolutely inspired after this week's events. But anyway, there's also the issue of the planning and infrastructure bill, which is coming up. That's going to rip through what's left of nature, he says. It lets developers wipe out habitats and just chuck away money into a joke fund after the damage is done. So more power to your elbow, Rob. Something like that is never easy. I definitely stand with you. 24 hours straight is exhausting. I hope you've been checked by a doctor. That is going to take its toll on you. And he will be starting today. So good luck with that. Good luck indeed. Good luck indeed. Is that true, Rock Lover? Rachel Reeves has pulled protection of greater crested newts and bats. I'd like to join that, says Christine. Manifesta. Ian. Right. This is kind of a weird story that I want to touch on briefly, because I think it tells us a lot about the music industry, of which I was formerly part of as a music journalist. And right. Vanessa says the righteous ones take care of his domestic animals. Proverbs 12:10. That's a beautiful proverb. There are some beautiful proverbs, aren't there? There really are. Right. I want to bring in this imagery. I'm sure many of you know who this is. If I can find it. Here it is. This is a story in 3 parts. And you can still see the images there. So Little Nas X, you may or may not know him. He's a rapper, very much part of the queer agenda. He's essentially a black Sam Smith. You saw what happened with Sam Smith. Sam Smith went from being a crooner to somebody who was very kind of debased, debauched, all part of the queer agenda. And Little Nas X was pushing everything. He was like, this imagery that I've chosen is supposed to be the devil clearly doing something with him. And then what happened last week? So what happened, obviously, is that the music industry queered him up, introduced a lot of satanic imagery, of which he was more than happy to use. And then it turned out the public don't like it, because the public can't stand that shit, really. I just said something naughty, but anyway, the public can't stand that. Public can't stand that stuff. And that is the reality. We can't. We hate seeing it because it feels very debased, right? The whole Sam Smith queering up was so sad to see, because I always thought he was like a decent singer. And the same thing has happened with Little Nas X. But what is obviously interesting, and I say that this is a story in 3 images right here, is that last week Little Nas X was then found in Hollywood walking down the road, first of all in his tighty whities and then completely naked in the middle of the street. And I watched some of the video. It was disturbing as hell. I don't trust anybody who sells out like this anyway, but when they start walking in the street utterly nude, really worrying. He was on Ventura Boulevard. It was last Thursday, and police arrived at the scene around kind of sort of 10 to 6 in the morning. They say that he was charged, and I say this is a story in 3 images, because the top one is him being very much, he did a song called Industry Baby, which itself, given all the imagery that he was coming out with, suggests that this was someone who probably experienced rather a lot of industry personnel, shall we say. And probably a bit like Sabrina Carpenter. That sort of thing, a bit like Rita Ora, that sort of thing. Anyway, so obviously the top image is there he is, very demonic. Bottom image is him naked, and the next one is him where he's behind, he's then having to show up in court. He's having to show up in court, and honestly, I think that this says a lot also probably about his mental health, which is obviously very, very sad. Anybody who's prepared to sell out like that, he was a country singer. Anybody who's prepared to sell out like that obviously is not okay. But he was taken into custody. He was transported to a local hospital. There was a suggestion that he may have taken an overdose. I don't think that's the truth now. And he had a hearing and spent the weekend in jail. And then he came out and he did a video and kind of talking about it. And obviously these charges are now pending. And he was talking about it, and he was like, I know you're worried, but your girl's going to be all right. Right. Then that's part of the problem, mate. Right. Is that you're not a girl. And this whole thing has kind of like messed with you. And I hate seeing people who are taken in by the music industry, subject to some of their most heinous agendas, and then kicked out when they're not, when the public revolt against it, because the public do find this sort of stuff really revolting. We are so sick of it. So his father came out. That was quite sad. His father said that his son had had a dramatic breakdown. I went to visit him in jail, and as soon as I walked through the door, I couldn't do anything but cry. Heartbreaking for families, because obviously he's an adult. He can decide himself if he wants to be an industry pawn, right? And he said, his father said, see my baby boy on the other side of that glass. We shed tears with each other for a minute. And that is sad, because parents don't want to have to go through that. So that is very, very sad indeed. The nude photo shows a mayor. He is mayor. He is mayor. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. Mel said, messing with evil never ends. Indeed. So yeah, no, his sex or his gender was never in doubt for me. Not at all. So yes, I do absolutely believe him to be a male, which in itself, absolutely indecent, walking down the street naked, right? Don't let your daughters go on TikTok, said Aurora. I hear you loud and clear. So there you go. I think that in itself tells us what happens, that the music industry takes you in and will subject you to their agenda, and if you're prepared to do it, and he was, and I don't respect anybody who's prepared to carry out those agendas. I absolutely don't. I don't care who it is, whether it's Beyonce or Jay-Z or Little Nas X. If they're prepared to go along with those agendas, then unfortunately they have to deal with whatever comes for them. And a lot of the time it is mental health conditions. And on that note, I do wish him well, and I hope that he is able to find some peace away from the music industry. Quick reminder, several of our viewers have reminded me, I mentioned this lady a while ago, Ethel May Caterham, and because she's like super old, right? She's now 116. She is the oldest living person in the UK. Her birthday was the 21st of August. Happy birthday, Ethel May. Happy birthday. I'd love to go and visit her. She's just down the road in a Surrey care home. So I'm going to try and get hold of them. But I'd love to go and just get her on video, because I think that's wonderful. Yes. And yeah, Fred, 116. 116, right? I don't personally know if I'd want to live to 116, but if she's well, if she's healthy, if she's not in pain, and by all accounts, she's sparky. Absolute Sparky. Yes. Oh, right. Lovely to see you too. What's that? Oh, it's too late. He's already over to the dark side. Who are you talking about? 116 Dilip. Wow, I know. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well done. She received a congratulatory message from João Marino Neto of Brazil, who is the world's oldest living man. He was born on the 5th of October, 1912. These people are living long. DJ Darkside talking about Katy Perry. She's a pretty mess now, isn't she? Paddy said Ethel was breakdancing yesterday. I tend to think that might even have some truth attached to it. Who can ever tell? Right. I want to address this. Really important. I believe I made a blooper the other week and I want to address it. I'm that person. If I make errors, if I make mistakes, I like to address them. When we had Paul Burgess on, I said to him that I agreed. I didn't believe that commercial flights were being used for geoengineering. What I was referring to very specifically, and I think this is where I confuse people, was I don't believe that passenger jets are being used for geoengineering. But I think any aircraft is, because I see the evidence in my eyes. So I wanted to say that because I think it's important to say that. I think pretty much any plane can be used to spray. So I hope that clears that up. It's clear from what I've been saying for actually the last 15 plus years that I think multiple types of planes are used. And when I said I don't believe commercial jets are being used, I was talking about with passengers on. Right, that's what I was talking about. Okay, but I want to show an image. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki Schneider has sent in an image. Let me just show it because I think it's important too. And a lot of the time, one of the reasons that I show this imagery is I believe that we are showing a crime scene. Essentially, this is a stark image, stark image. Look at that. It's like beautiful scenery. And then you look up to the sky. Nobody can tell me that is contrails. Nobody. And I won't believe them because it doesn't make sense. Never seen a scheduled flight with chemtrails, but plenty not on the flight tracker with chemtrails, says Jan. Got you. Thank you for that, Nikki. Appreciate that. That apparently is Dollar Cove in Helston. And Dollar Cove looks absolutely glorious, but such a pity what is happening to that sky. Such a pity. I think it's horrible what has happened. And let's turn to your shout now. This is lovely. I think this is from Sonia H. Are you in the comments, Sonia H? She wanted to balance up what I was saying last week. I'd taken an image of a post box, which, and now they've done several now in my area, by the way. The video that I showed last week was an image of a post box, which they'd sealed up and it was waiting for a new automated system. And lovely Sonia sent in this, which is lovely. She said, I hope you're well. I saw your show the other day where you featured a disused letterbox. Very disturbing. But in the interest of balance, I thought I'd send you a pic of our local letterbox, which is next to our local shop in the village, which is Whitfield near Dover. And she said, some lovely individual makes these covers and they change fairly regularly. I thought it was too lovely not to share. Maybe others have similar in their areas. Do you have somebody? I'm pretty sure I've seen one of these post box covers before. And if you're not from England and not from the UK, these post boxes probably won't mean a great deal to you, but they're very much part of our tradition and our heritage, just as the red phone boxes were. And so to see them start to be disused or to go out of service is disturbing because it feels very much like another erasure of the culture to many people. So it's absolutely wonderful when I see things like this. Absolutely wonderful. Is there loads on the Isle of Wight, Hugh? Is there? Send me some. I absolutely loved those. And Sonia said, anyway, I felt it would be nice to share something positive and all the doom and gloom. Indeed. Absolutely. They are really cute. We have lots of cute things here. Do you? We have them here. Do you, Kath? Oh, it's a thing then, right? Also, what's interesting today is, I think many people are aware that Royal Mail, which was a British institution for a long time, was sold. It was sold to a Czech billionaire. Well, today they're expected to show a return to annual earnings. They've got their first set of results since it was sold and since the completion of the 3.6 billion takeover. They're saying it's been a milestone year. Yeah, it is a milestone year, which saw the Royal Mail taken into foreign ownership for the first time in more than its 500-year history. So yes, that's absolutely a milestone. Hardly a surprise that we're starting to see now disused Royal Mail boxes, because it's like so many things, they're consigning it to history. Do you? Steve and I was too. I used to like the old phone boxes. One of our neighbours, he bought one of those red phone boxes. He's got a big enough garden, and he's installed it in his own garden. God love him. It looks great. What happened to the money? What money, Paddy? What money are you talking about? Oh, what happened with the 3.6 billion take-up? Well, of course, it will have gone into government coffers, won't it? Lots. Reverse charges. Got you. And this is a lovely video. We're moving on to altogether much nicer things. This is lovely. Dinah sent this in, said, thought you might like this wonderful short reel filmed by my daughter on a walk in one of our favorite parks. The voice is hers. And here we go. Have a look at this. Look at them go.
Hello, darlings. Where are you going? Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Mum.
wow. Absolutely wonderful. I love that so much. See, that sort of stuff makes me happy. Makes me happy to the core. I absolutely love that stuff. And thank you for saying. I know, Jeannie. Absolute wow stuff. And Shug says sees venison burgers. Don't get me started, Shug. Don't get me started, because they've already started culling the deers in my local park, and it makes me upset. And I can often hear the gunshots, and it makes me so upset. And they claim it's so that the deers don't overrun us. But then I put in a freedom of information request several years back, and I think they'd made £37,000 in one season from selling it for meat. The beautiful side of the planet, Markuson. Indeed, it is absolutely lovely. And this is also lovely. I asked, where do you go to chill? And Paul Cardin said, this is where we go. Attached is a video of my sister-in-law's lovely barn. I don't think it's showing up on the big screen, unfortunately. There you go. And the surrounding countryside on the Lancashire-Yorkshire border. Paul says, my wife, 2 daughters, and I have enjoyed many peaceful times here away from it all. And we do all need to get away from it all, don't we? From time to time, it all becomes too much, right? And yeah, Deborah, if I could print what you've just said, I would. Don't they know nature takes care of its own? Yes, they do, love. But the thing is, when nature takes care of its own, they can't then sell that carcass. Isn't it beautiful? We are so lucky to be near them where we live. Yes, so we see the gorgeous deers hate culling season, the serenity of it all. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And this is what I did this weekend. Now, I think this is important, and this is about my new aspiration. So obviously, alongside being a journalist and broadcaster, which I'll be probably to my dying day, right? But I genuinely now want to acquire some land to build a pick your own farm. So my daughter booked for us to go. And this is it. It's called Garson Farm, Pick Your Own. And there's top picking tips, and it costs £2 per adult, and you go in. Actually, let me just show you the video, and it's only a minute long, and you can see what I was up to this weekend.
Right.
This is lovely. Look at these, absolutely gorgeous. And I can categorically tell you that we had a lot of the stuff yesterday for our Sunday dinner. You can taste the difference. But here's the thing, I'm going to blow your mind now, right? This is what we got. Everything's organic. Everything is sustainable. We got the punnet of strawberries. We got plums, apples, tomatoes, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, French beans, sunflowers, blackberries, and onions. We have enough for a week and a half, all organic, £16. 16 quid. That's insane. Organic is so expensive in the shops. And the other thing is that obviously, like most sensible people, I always clean my fruit and veg after I've purchased it. And I have a cleaner for it. And the crap that comes off of shop bought food is just horrendous. And I oftentimes can't afford organic food in shops because it's so overpriced. But £16 for all of that blew my mind. And that's when it told me, absolutely, people. And that's when it told me, right, we can all eat decently on this planet for not very much indeed when you have decent places like Garson as one example. That's so good, Jack. I know. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? I said to him, are you sure? I almost wanted him to charge us more. My daughter paid for it all. She's a star. But I almost wanted him to charge us more because it was, first of all, families were there. So it was like an adventure for children. It feels like you're finding gold, right? When you happen upon a broccoli plant and you see the broccoli growing in it, and it's just absolutely amazing. There is absolutely ample food supply. Absolutely. Wild blackberries are free. Yes, indeed they are. Yes, indeed. Most people have a garden. Start growing today. That sounds like a wonderful plan, right? Doesn't it? Senton Till. Is that your name? There is no such thing as organic because of the sky spraying, says Chris. Chris is not having it. Chris is not having it. And so I take that point, Chris. But here's the thing, is that when I washed off this fruit, it had almost nothing on it compared to what comes off of shop bought fruit and veg. So a lot of that, is really interesting. And obviously, of course, they put their forever chemicals on it as well. But the point being is that this is all organic to all intents and purposes. Okay. To all intents and purposes, it's grown locally. We have enough for a week and a half, and for £16. That tells me everyone, if given the right tools, given the right access to places, can afford to eat decently, right? Everybody doesn't need to go to wherever, Iceland or have convenience meals. So that is absolutely my goal now. I want to open a grow your own farm. That's what I want to do. Somebody said get a cow and something to do with magic mushrooms. I'm not quite sure what that means, but that sounded funny. And everything was organic. What happened? I know indeed. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. That's lovely. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I want to talk briefly about Friday's show, which was about the NSPCC. And thank you for all of your messages and emails. Thank you to whistleblowers Catriona. Very interesting email. I think there's several of the whistleblowers who sent to me, including Pixie. Thank you so much. I think they're a story in their own right. And they've also told me the goings on at the NSPCC over a period of years when they had some dealings with them or when they work with them. And I must have had about up to 10 emails from people who have worked at the NSPCC and who watched it and said, at last. And somebody said, yeah, we were that close to getting the BBC to cover all this. And then they pulled off, they cowered out of it. So anyway, and hello to Gina. Gina was in the comments saying, I just want to extend my deepest thanks to you for covering this matter. It seems like everywhere we turn, there's this sinister underbelly designed with intent to do the complete opposite of protecting children. I felt for a very long time, to the point I really was so against even sending my young children to school. Even back then, it felt like they were being forced into a system designed to cause them harm, which obviously made me a total weirdo in everyone's eyes. And Gina goes on to say about how I'd said that why aren't we raising more awareness towards sick and disabled people? Indeed, we should. And thank you, Gwen, lovely, saying I really appreciate your kind words about my investigation ability. And I appreciate that very much. And Cheeky Monkey, Why didn't you show up on Friday as having very kindly donated? You people are wonderful, wonderful. And thank you, Kirsty. Thank you, Sonia, for once again shining light in the so very dark. Thank you. I appreciate that. And of course, as ever, thank you to our donators. The credits at the end are from my patrons. I've changed things around. We no longer have tiers, but one tier. People have told me that they want to support Wake Up, and this is the way that it can be done easily. And on Patreon, what I've done is I've taken it down to the lowest paid tier that we had, which was $3. It's not in sterling, which is about £2.20. So if you'd like to support Wake Up on a regular basis, you can become a patron. My patrons hear first what is on Wake Up and any news pertaining to our show. You will also receive a show reminder. You will feature on the credits. And if you are not a patron, but you donate another way, either, I don't know, through PayPal or directly to the Wake Up account, and you would like your name on the credits, please let me know. The only reason I don't do it automatically is I don't have your permission, whereas my patrons know they will be credited and can be removed if they prefer. And people donate for different reasons, and not everybody wants the world to know, but I do like to be able to shout people out if they're happy to. I do like to be able to, because it's absolutely vital. I couldn't do what I do around here without your kindness and generosity. I simply couldn't. And I very much appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jack, very much. Absolutely. Happy to support. And she is one of my patrons. Indeed, she is. So we've reached that point of the show, the end. The end. And what's the weather like where you are? I'm just looking out there through the conservatory window. It's looking kind of sunny, but I can feel storm in the air. And thank you, Em. I appreciate you too. I appreciate all of you. And I just want to talk about that change, that feeling in the air. You must be able to feel it, right? So this month on the 22nd, we're about to move to a new season, autumn. Now, I love autumn. I love the colors of autumn. I love that sort of sense of things have reached fruition and conclusion. And it's yesterday I was out in the garden doing some gardening. Actually, it's odd. I'm like that person who has a cleaner and then they do a clean of the house before they bring in the cleaner. So I'm that person who tidies up the garden a little bit before the gardener comes back, because I don't want him to be waylaid with leaves and everything, and I want him just to focus on the trees, because we have a very mature garden. We've been blessed with a very mature garden from people who lived here previously. It's a beautiful mature garden, but very high trees, and I need somebody to cut them properly. And so I was out there and I was cleaning away the leaves, and it just made me kind of reflect on this season of moving on, really. So I thought, being as it's September the 1st, which moves us on from the holiday season of like July and August, school's going back tomorrow, Parliament returned today. So I thought today's end of show should be just that, about moving on. And it could be from anything. People often think, when you say moving on, they often think it's about something really sad that you've experienced, but not necessarily. I mean, it could be a home, it could be a bad relationship, it could be a job, it could be your changing career, you name it. And even if it's a happy event that you're moving on from, there is still a sense of you have to lose something in order to be able to gain the next stage of the journey, right? So it's a sense of grief that often takes place in the moving on stage. And I'm definitely feeling it right now. It's almost like, you know, I really love the age I am. When I reflect back now, I wouldn't for anything want to be 30 or 40 again. I was still kind of blind to a lot of what was going on, even though I was more awake than a lot of people, but I was still. Whereas now I can detect things very quickly. If people lie to me, I know they're lying, right? I know when someone's lying. When somebody feeds me BS, I know it. Like immediately. I just feel it and know it immediately. Anyway, that's what I love about maturity. So I love that process also of moving on from kind of like youth into an older age as well, while still being absolutely vital, because I'm telling you, I can kick anybody's ass if I need to. I don't care if I'm 61, right? I'll fight anybody if I need to. I come from a fighting mother. Irish Welsh, small Aries, she'll fight her. She would fight anybody, and I come from that. So that's not it. But there's moving on to more graces now. I don't need to fight anybody. I don't need to kick people's butt. I can just be. And there's a sense of that as well. And I think when you're in the process of moving on, you have to allow yourself to kind of grieve the past to a certain degree. And it's okay, because it's crucial that you feel your feelings and that experience that you went through, because a lot of times we're almost told to suppress them, like move on. Like there's nothing to acknowledge that we're leaving behind. And so I cry as much as I laugh. And so I express my sense of grief with tears. I'm not one to hide my emotions, but also to enable people to move on without kind of regretting, without looking back. Because what you don't want to do is be looking into the future with one eye on the past, because you're going to go nowhere. So one of the first things that I think people need to do in order to be able to accept that we're moving on, whatever it is, whether it's seasons or whatever, is accept the situation. Even though this is not yet autumn, we're no longer in the height of summer, as one example. And if you're moving on from a bad relationship or a bad job or whatever, accept that things didn't work out. It's no biggie. Don't expect the person to come back, and neither should you accept them to come back. If it didn't work, it didn't work. And that's another thing. The process of moving on also involves letting go. And the other thing that I think that comes from moving on is you need to reflect what is happening in a realistic way. So let's use a relationship as an example. It's very easy in the passage of time to only see either all the awful things a person has done or all the good things a person has done. But human beings are more complex than that. Even if you're involved with a narcissist, they'll have done some good things. And so I think when I say reflect realistically, remember the good and bad about people. That's okay. It is. But I'm coming back to what I always come back to and why we have the end of this show. And that is prioritize yourself, prioritize self-care. It's really important. One of the reasons I'm really enjoying playing some of these videos is that we need to, given how emotionally intense the start of our show can be in the news hour, we need to also be able to engage in calming activities. Okay. And I find watching Baby Deer very calming indeed. I love that. I do. I find people who have knitted sort of tea cozies for post boxes calming, because that feels very community spirited. So I love all stuff like that. And the thing is, when you move on, it frees you up from something that might have been a ball and chain, might have been weighing you down for a very long time. And the older I get, the less I am prepared to do things that I don't absolutely love. If I don't absolutely love something, it's going to be really hard to get me motivated, to get me into gear. And I'm no longer of the mindset that, well, I don't need to love it in order to be able to do it. No. I have worked long enough and I've worked hard enough now to do only what I'm passionate about. That was one of the reasons that I finally created such a kerfuffle when I was on this morning, the last time I was on this morning, when I but I just tore up the script of what they wanted me to talk about, because I looked around the set and I thought, I don't want to be part of this anymore. So I thought, time to go out in magnificent style. And so that was just one example. And it freed me up to be able to pursue a more independent route, which is right for me. And also, don't be afraid to lean on your support system if you have a support system. And if you don't, then seek one. The great thing about us having an internet these days is that you can find support systems pretty much anywhere. You have to be careful, of course, but you can. And when we let go of the past, it opens up all new arenas for us, including meeting new people. And that's great. And creating new routines. So I've got new routines at the moment. So I used to be one of those people. First of all, I love fresh coffee, right? My routine for as long as I can remember has been wake up, coffee. That's it. I wake up, I go downstairs, I set the coffee machine, coffee. And for the last 3 weeks, that's changed. And in earnest over the last 2 weeks. And so my routine now, and always with my coffee, I also had lemon water, but now I have lemon water, Manuka honey, and warm lemon water, Manuka honey to start my day. And that has now become my routine over the last few weeks. And I'm that person where I probably have very working class taste, right? I don't have necessarily sophisticated taste, even though I was born very working class. And even though I've been very fortunate, I've had lots of experiences that have enabled me, very privileged experiences where I've been paid to travel abroad and stay at some of the most wonderful hotels. I'm also very simple. I'm also very basic. And so the idea of like having lemon water and Manuka honey would never normally have appealed to me. But but I've gotten into it now. I've got used to it. And I've also significantly cut down on the lovely cold beers that I used to enjoy. And because that started to feel a bit habitual, and I don't like anything that feels habitual. So that had to go. And so I'm creating and establishing new routines, which feels nice. And the other part of the process of moving on is about shifting your perspective. And one of the things that you absolutely need to do is let go of resentment. And I've gotten over this idea that we have to forgive people. No, we don't, actually. We don't have to forgive people. We don't. If somebody's done you bad, you don't have to forgive them, right? But you have to be able to let them go enough that they no longer take up rent-free space in your brain. And actually, I'm now of the mind, I used to say, you've got to forgive me, we've got to forgive people in order to get closure. No, I'm now of the mind, actually, it's not necessarily a healthy thing to automatically forgive people, because some people need not to be forgiven for what they may or may not have done to you. And that's not to say you go around like full of resentment. That doesn't help you. I'm saying find a healthy balance, and that is know who's who in your life, but travel as freely as possible. And don't be afraid to cut contact. If somebody is part of your past, but they were part of your past that was negative, because this is about looking to the future. Let's look to the future. I love cold beer and smokes. Have some distance to go. Randy, and the other thing is, don't be judgmental. That's what Randy likes. That's what Randy enjoys. And that is all good with me. Forgive, but don't forget, says Peter. I hear you. I say just stay away from those who did us wrong and work through feelings to discharge resentment. And that's good advice too. That's good advice too. So whatever you choose to do, it is very much a moving on season, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I know the Bible teaches us to forgive, and I do understand that, but I also understand, I studied psychology, and I also understand that this notion that we can just forgive people is not as easy as some people think. So maybe what we need is more understanding of the process of letting go, moving on, and forgiving in order to not create resentment, because you can always tell a resentful person they're not nice to be around. Walk away from negativity. I resent so many politicians. Stephen, I think that is what's known as worthy. Right. I want to just thank you all for being here. You people are amazing as ever. And I truly appreciate what you bring to the program. And as ever, I want to end on a quote. And actually, I want to. One is, stop looking for happiness in the same place you lost it, because that is something people do, right? Is that when other people make us miserable, we often turn to the very same miserable people who make us miserable to try and make us feel good again. Okay. So stop doing that. And the other one that I absolutely love and think it's perfect to end today's show is inhale the future and exhale the past. And on that note, I will see you on Friday. Keep being you in that wonderful, unique way that you are. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate you very, very much. And I'll see you Friday. Take good care of yourself. Lots of love, people.